In Flutter apps, it is common to convert data into classes when handling structured data. This is because there are many convenient advantages compared to using map type data. Let's make a simple dot app and proceed. I'll create an app called .data class by typing .create .data class in the command line. Move to .data class folder and run VS Code. I will move to the bin folder and delete the unnecessary import statement and also delete the argument of main and print statement. Let's say we receive the following person data in JSON string format from the remote API. We'll store that data in a variable called person string. ID is 1, name is John Doe, and email is johndoe@gmail.com. Then, firstly, this JSON data is converted into map type data using JSON decode or JSON.decode of .convert package. For this, first import the .convert package. The result of applying the JSON decode function to person string is stored in person JSON variable. Let's print the runtime type of person string and the person string itself. Similarly, let's print the runtime type of person JSON and the person JSON itself. Let's open a terminal and run it. The runtime type of person string is string and the runtime type of person JSON is map. Map is one of the data type of Dart. Using this map data as it is in the app is quite cumbersome. Therefore, it is usually converted to a class. If you change map data to class, it will have the following form. In addition to declaring member variables, we also create a constructor. I created a person instance named P1 as follows. ID is 1, name is John Doe, and email is johndoe@gmail.com. Let's print the P1 instance. Then, instance of person is output to the console. Little information is given about the actual object, P1 instance. It would be nice to know the values of specific members. To do that, we need to override the class's toString method. We will override the toString method as follows. The class name, argument names, and argument values are printed out. Let's print again. It came out nicely. Next, it would be convenient to have a function to convert the map data into class instance. Let's create the FromJSON factory constructor. FromJSON factory constructor converts map type data into person instance. The value of the ID argument is JSON ID. The value of the name argument is JSON name. And the value of the email argument is JSON email. Null-aware operator was used for safety and gave an appropriate default value in case there is no value. Let's say we have received the following JSON data from the remote API. First, convert the map data into JSON using JSON decode of .convert package. Next, we will create a new instance called P2 using person.fromJSON and print it out. After it was converted to an object normally, it was outputted beautifully. And the toJSON method that converts object instance into map type data is also frequently used. When creating an app, it is often necessary to create a new object in which only some members of an existing object have been changed. The copied function is also frequently used, which makes it easy to do that. If you use copy with function, it is very convenient because you only need to provide the argument you want to change. If ID is null, the existing ID is used. And it is often necessary to check equality between class instances, that is, objects. Let's create two instances, P3 and P4, with the same members and print whether they are the same. For P3 and P4, the ID is 3, the name is Everest, and the email is everest@gmail.com. Let's run it. False was output. Dart's default object equality is reference equality. That is, objects in the same location in memory are considered the same. However, if you use reference equality, the two instances we just created are considered different. After declaring a variable called P33 and assigning P3, let's check whether two objects are equal. Because we use reference equality, P3 and P33 are considered equal. However, there are cases where two instances need to be considered equal if they have the same members. In real apps, when using object instances, it is often more convenient to consider them to be equal if they have the same members. That requires that you override the object equality operator in hash code if you want to define object equality. I will override the equality operator in hash code. First, equality operator. The identical function tests the referential equality of two objects. If the identical returns true, no further comparison is necessary, so it returns true. Next, if the object to be compared is a person type, the runtime type is the same, and all members have the same value, true is returned. Next, override the hash code. Now, let's check if P3 and P4 are equal. Now, the output is true. By the way, equality is a much more complex problem than this. In the case of person class, all member variables were primitive types. If a member contains a list, set, map, and deeply nested data in addition to primitive types, member comparison becomes much more complicated. If the members of a class are nested data, such as list, set, map, etc., deep equality must be used in order to consider the same if the members are the same. If the class has more members and the members themselves are another complex data structure, this becomes much more difficult, and doing these things manually is error-prone. Therefore, it would be very helpful to have a tool to help you do this. There are VS Code extensions and packages that help you do this easily. There is a VS Code extension called .data class generator. The .data class generator extension makes all of the aforementioned tasks easy. However, in relation to equality, if the class member is nested data, additional work may be required. So, for equality, I will use a package called equatable. Fortunately, the .data class generate extension is very convenient to use with equatable. Then let's see how to use the .data class generate extension and the equatable package.